more people in the future. So thank you all for joining us, and we're really excited to share our story here today. So, there we go. So our agenda for today, welcome you to share our mission and our history, the framework of habitual excellence that we use with organizations, our approach to tackling big regional problems together, ways that you can work with the Pittsburgh Futures Collaborative, and then any questions that you have along the way. So we're going to ask you to handle questions in a very specific way. If you need a clarification on something that I'm talking about right at that moment, please raise your hand and we will try to catch you and see that you've raised your hand and answer it in real time. But if you have questions that I might be answering later on, please hold them until the end and just put them as you go in the chat, and we'll try to tackle all of the questions and leave plenty of time to tackle them at the end of the session. So my name is Jeff Webster. I am the chair and senior advisor of the Pittsburgh Futures Collaborative. I just want to share a little bit of history. I've gone back doing this work for about 30 years now, believe it or not. First with the Pittsburgh Regional Healthcare Initiative, where we were seeking to end harm in healthcare in the Pittsburgh area and drive excellence through healthcare. Then with Value Capture, which is a for-profit organization that does this work in healthcare all around the country and the world. And then back in the early 2010s with the Pittsburgh Urban Magnet Project and Pump Futures, where we tried to address regional leadership issues. And now for the past 3 or 4 years with the Pittsburgh Futures Collaborative, which we'll talk about here. So the Pittsburgh Futures Collaborative is definitely not me. It is a group of us and many more people who aren't on this slide, really. Our board and our team who do work to try to drive habitual excellence. So this is a picture from a violence event that we did a while ago with the city, but there are many, many people who have been involved in the work of the Pittsburgh Futures Collaborative. And this is just a little more about the timeline. I shared the organizations that we've been a part of through the years, but we also have had many partners who we've learned with, including, going back to Alcoa, and I'll share more about that story, Toyota and the Harvard Business School, who helped codify a lot of these ideas, Catalysis, which does this work in healthcare with us, and the Shingo Institute. And then more recently, we've had partners in the city of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh Water, but this is to really try to find more partners to work with in the Pittsburgh region. So we exist to make Pittsburgh the first place in the world where every individual can live to their fullest potential and thrive. And we believe that if we do this, Pittsburgh will be the best region measurably in everything, because a region really is its people. So if we can pull off this mission, we believe that we'll be the best place in the world. And we do this by enabling individual organizations and groups of organizations to use the habitual excellence framework, unlocking unprecedented value in what we can do as a region and as organizations, aligning to aspirational regional goals that we can achieve together but not alone. So we believe deeply that there's lots that we can do by getting better as organizations individually. There is much more that we can do if we can work across organizations to achieve really important regional goals. And we hope to continue to do that work, and we'll show you some of the results so far. So first really important thing to talk about is that since we began this work, we've been told that all kinds of things are impossible to achieve, and then we've gone on to help our partners achieve them. So a really important idea here is that impossible is only impossible until you do it. So we believe that we can do all kinds of things that people believe are impossible, and we want to do those together with you. And a first starter example for this Our mentor, one of our mentors, Paul O'Neill Sr., became the CEO of Alcoa back in 1987. And at the time, it was really a dying company that was going the way of many of the other dying companies in the United States, or at least waning companies. And during his tenure there, as you can see, he made worker safety the goal of the organization that then he believed would drive everything else to be excellent. And what this slide shows is that that actually succeeded. Not only did they get extremely close to zero harm, you can expect to work at Alcoa for 1,000 years before the first time that you're harmed badly enough that you lose a day of work, but at the same time made it incredibly profitable because the same ideas that help you become incredibly safe help you become incredibly excellent in every other way. So we learned these principles and we started applying them to healthcare. And many of you may not know what a central line is. Basically, it's a life-saving device that enables you to deliver medicines to people who are very, very sick directly to your heart. But when you put a line in like that, you also create a direct line for bacteria and other bugs to get into your body that can kill you and harm you very badly. So when we started doing this work, people said, well, it's impossible to put in a line and not introduce that risk of killing you. And what we proved over many, many organizations over many years, this just being one example at the University of Pennsylvania, is that that's not true. When we started, they were infecting over 350 people and killing about 60 to 80 people per year by the insertion of these lines. And as you can see, we started there in 2008, and by 2010, single digit numbers of people were even getting an infection and no one was dying. And that was maintained for many years after this slide was completed. So when we think about what we're trying to do here in the region, we're trying to think equally big about the kinds of things that we could do here. And we are certainly not the only partners in this. There are many, many people in the city and by Pittsburgh and other places who have been envisioning how could we create transportation systems that get to zero. And it starts with understanding what's the customer need. We need to be able to get from place to place to do our work and to play and to socialize and meet other people. But at the same time, it's assumed that that causes risk, but that doesn't need to be the way it is. So you have to start with the need, and then you start thinking about, well, how will we measure if we're doing that right? And the best measure is almost always safety. So in this case, it would be we shouldn't have any fatalities and we shouldn't have any serious crashes. We shouldn't harm anybody in doing this activity. And the hard part is getting leaders to believe and trust in aiming for perfect. So we've been taught some very, very bad ideas in business school about always make your goals achievable because then you won't get dinged if you don't reach them. Well, true leaders and many organizations have learned that that's just the wrong idea. That if you aim for perfect and you then work every day safely, not blaming people, but safely to solve problems, that it's possible to actually get extremely close to perfect. And an example that we have for this that I shared at the Vision Zero conference a few months ago, and many other people did as well. Helsinki, Finland, bigger city than us, winter, all the things that we have, is now at zero fatalities, despite being much less safe than we were as recently as the 1980s. So it takes time, but it is possible to achieve some of these really incredible things. And you may say, well, this is Europe. Europe can do things we can't do. Well, guess what? Hoboken, New Jersey, I'm sorry. Hoboken, New Jersey, which is smaller than us, it's about 60,000 people, but they are now at 4 years with no fatalities on their roadways. So these ideas of aiming for excellence and then working together to achieve it are possible, and we're trying to bring that kind of thinking to the region. So an important thing that we wanted to share was that we don't do this work. We don't try to bat for you. We don't try to tackle for you. We enable other organizations to do this work. And we do that by bringing a set of principles to leaders that help them succeed in leading their own organizations, and then to groups of leaders to help them succeed in working together to achieve these things. And this is a very important distinction. We are not consultants. We don't do the work for you, but we do partner with you to help create incredible value. And the way that we do that is really by helping leaders understand the fundamentals of habitual excellence. So these are four fundamental principles that leaders need to use in order to create the conditions for habitual excellence in their organizations. And we're going to walk through each one for a couple minutes here. So first of all, I already talked about how important it is to aim for perfect. I think that Michelangelo summed it up really well here with his quote, that we can aim for less than perfect and then reach it, but we've really handicapped ourselves. We've taken away our own capabilities by doing that. So what we help leaders do is have the courage to aim high and then achieve those high aims. And when we fail, learn. So the second part is equally important. Um, Leaders need to take personal responsibility for everything that happens in their organization. And frankly, it's much more important to take responsibility for the things that go badly than the things that go well. Sharing credit and crediting the people who actually do the work for the things that go well is really important. When things go wrong, if the leader doesn't take personal responsibility, essentially what they do is shift blame to the rest of the organization. And it usually funnels down, and it creates fear, and it creates lack of inclusion, lack of learning, lack of contribution, and maybe most important, lack of challenging. The ability of people to call out what isn't working and challenge the way that things happen now, and be willing to innovate and learn and change and fail and then do it again in small doses so that we can become a better and better organization. So this is a critically important thing that most leaders don't do, and that creates the conditions for habitual excellence. So the third thing we need to do is re-engineer work. And the mistake that most organizations make is that they think that re-engineering work is the people at the top of the organization deciding how the work should happen, and then holding people at lower levels of the organization accountable for doing it that way. That will never create habitual excellence. What we've learned is that re-engineering work is really about enabling the workforce to re-engineer their work because they understand it much better than leaders ever could. Um, and then again, trying and changing and improving over time. So a key here is that we help advise and support people in enabling leaders to become servant leaders who support their people in re-engineering their own work towards better and better every day. And then the final part of the system that's critically important is that you have a system of improvement. And most organizations have something that they call a system for improvement. Many do have very good systems for improvement. But what this really is about is starting, as I said before, with understanding the customer need, identifying gaps where we don't meet that need, diagnosing the root causes, and then driving these improvement cycles where people change work, measure what they've done, see whether they got better or worse, and learn from it. and then repeat and repeat and repeat every single day. So having those four um, uh, bases for habitual excellence can create organizations that can actually produce habitual excellence. So I want to give some examples that we've already started here in the Pittsburgh region. We've had a great partner in the city of Pittsburgh, and like Alcoa, they decided to start with worker safety as an example. And what this graph, narrowing it down really clearly, is that for years and years and years, we basically ran at harming between 360 and 300 or 400 people per year. And that was just the norm in how work happened. And then we hit the pandemic, and in 19, 2020, 2021, people weren't at work. So we have an artificial low here that was caused by people basically not doing as much work. But then coming out of the pandemic, we had the leadership of the new administration. And what you can see here is we created a new norm. So the new norm went from 380 people to basically 320 people. And then every single year, because of having continuous improvement principles and systems in place, it's gotten better and better and better. And it's going to continue to do so if we keep those conditions in place and those systems in place. So this is an example of a very difficult culture, difficult, challenging city government, being able to change their culture and drive really excellent results. And this represents 18% reduction citywide, and that's 70 fewer workers per year being injured and needing medical attention. It's actually getting even better than that now. And a consequence of that, not the reason we did it, but a consequence of that is actually a $5 million savings per year in workers' compensation, which you can reinvest in supporting people to do their work better, in better equipment, and so on. We never make money the reason we do these things, but it is always true that money is a benefit of doing these things that then can create a virtuous cycle of excellence in an organization. So this isn't just true of worker safety. The prevention efforts that the city has put in place using these same principles have driven a 50% better than 50% reduction in violence across the city. That's versus a 25% national improvements in the same measures. And we are now at the lowest rate of harm in the city of Pittsburgh in its history. We are safer than we have ever been as a city, which is just remarkable. And it's even better where we've gone deeper. So we created a test of these principles in the Southside Hilltop, where we tried to get even more preventive and find people before violence ever occurs. And in the Southside Hilltop, as of today, we have an 89% reduction in homicides and an 80% reduction in non-fatal gunshots. And even more impressively, that is 2/3 down and half down from the lowest recorded numbers in the history of the city, in the history of that neighborhood. So that's running at about 8 fewer deaths and 17 fewer serious injuries per year in that neighborhood with only 25,000 people in it. So just fundamentally changing what it means to live in that neighborhood using these kinds of principles. The same is true of traffic safety. I won't go deeply into this, but we've used the same principles to try to drive traffic safety improvements in the city, along with many, many, many other partners. And this is the results that we've seen so far. We aren't just working with the city of Pittsburgh. We've been working with the Pittsburgh Water and PGH2O. with their great leader, Will Pickering, and his team. And they've put in place just in these past 5 or 6 months a safety system very similar to what the city has done. What this graph shows is for the first time ever, we're actually seeing near misses before anything ever happens. And the result of that and the problem solving that's going on is that we've had the 5 lowest months in the last 32. And when you take the average post system versus pre system, that's a 41% reduction in worker harm, which means that 6 fewer workers already have been hurt badly enough to miss work or be restricted or transferred in their work. Due to this work at Pittsburgh Water, and they're applying this to many, many more things as well within their system this early in the journey. So with that, we really want to create a region where everyone can thrive. So again, what our role is enabling leaders to help their own organization to help their workers thrive and their customers thrive, engaging, but also bringing community leaders together around common goals and a common way to achieve things that you can't achieve alone. So we want to help solve these big regional problems. And some examples of these that we would give, this is certainly not a comprehensive list. And we're really looking forward to the questions and the dialogue about, other things that you might be interested in working on. One is we constantly dig up streets, and the city digs them up, and then they repave it, and then water digs them up and repave it, and gas digs it up and repaves it. And it leads to just incredible waste and really bad conditions of our roadways. Imagine a world where instead of that, we aligned our goals and we worked together to coordinate our activities so that we do the work all at one time, and then we take the savings and we don't only put the road back the way it was, but we put the road back the way we want it to be, towards Vision Zero and towards really excellent infrastructure with traffic calming and all the things that we might want in place. Another example would be how can we create our inspection and permitting processes so that we still live up to all of our commitments around safety and excellence, but that we streamline them so that people can do development in a way that actually adds value to the community, and we can have more and more jobs and more excellent opportunities for wealth creation for all of us. Um, we've already talked about eliminating violence. You could also think about things like universal accessibility. No matter who you are, what disabilities you might have, can we create the conditions where jobs and transit and everything else are accessible to all people, not just some? We have a vision for how we'll do that. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but we believe that there's an ideal state for the city that we can help create. And the key is on the left side of this diagram is we just enable it. We help people create this common vision and agreement on goals and agreement on way and an understanding of what our current condition is with real-time data. But it is all of you as partners who will actually do all these things. We just need to work with you to do them together. So that's our vision. And what's next is really up to you, and this dialogue. And I would love with that to open it up to questions from the group, ideas from the group, comments from the group, and we'll go from there. So thank you. So I am looking in the chat.
Jeff, do you want me to allow people to chat, talk with you?
Yes, we can talk and we can put questions in the chat.
Okay.
whichever is preferable for people.
Somebody had their hand raised. It went down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I could not see all of the people on the call all at once, so I apologize if I talked through you.
Nancy has asked if you could walk through the violence prevention initiative.
Absolutely. Um, So I'll try to do a brief version, but the gist is in 2024, we got a group of people who do violence prevention work all across the city. And we literally observed how does violent prevention work now. We went out and walked the streets with violence prevention workers, with police, with a variety of people, and we mapped out how the process works. And the things that stood out as root causes for why we still have violence um, were in large part that we wait until after somebody is shot, and then 95% of the activity is trying to prevent other people from retaliating or being traumatized and so on. And so we really came to the belief that if we wanted to eliminate violence, we have to start working with people way, way before anyone is shot, which is not, it's kind of makes sense, but it's not how we worked. And so we created in 2024, we got a group in Southside Hilltop together, again, of frontline people who do this work um, to create what we call an ideal state. How would we do this if we were really trying to find everybody who was at risk of committing violence, lower or moderate or high risk? And then how would we attach them to the resources and supports and problem solving needed to get them on a path that was nonviolent instead of violent? And in Southside Hilltop, where I showed those statistics, which are, by the way, a result not just of these efforts, they're also a result of the intervention stuff that is excellent. But we were able to create a system, and so far we have served about 15 families, about 60 people who were at that threshold. Among that group, not one person has been involved in a violent incident. And again, these are people who were at moderate to very high risk of committing violence. Um, and it's not only that. This group of people are now much closer to thriving, and many are thriving, having come from situations, and it's basically a public health perspective on violence prevention, and we've been able to create the system that can reliably do that with the people who do the work across multiple organizations. So that's what we've done and the results speak for themselves. But we'd be happy to share more. And I see that the some writing about this from our Substack is in the chat if you want to click on it and read more as well. Thank you for the question.
Jeff, we have a question from Sam Ashbaugh in the Q&A. I just joined Allegheny County as the Deputy County Manager in Performance, and the Performance and Analytics team is part of my portfolio. We have a really solid team under Joanne's leadership, so just curious how you would leverage them to address potential county initiatives.
Oh, absolutely. So again, we don't do, we enable. So what we would love to do is talk about how to connect with teams of people who are doing this work at the county and doing excellent work already, and just try to bring these principles to figure out how we get the leaders engaged in solving the problems that are most important to the county. And the data and analytics team is really important because if you don't have real-time information, it's not actionable. So you can have lots of great data, but it's all retrospective and it can tell you the story of where you are, but it can't tell you the story of where to look and what to do. So we would love to work with teams there to create more real-time data and then to work with the teams and the operational leaders to create better results for the people of the county. And the county clearly is a key player in so much of this because so much of human services and so much of transportation and many other things fall under the county purview. So we'd love to continue that conversation.
Next up, Julie, I'm going to allow you to talk if you want to speak, or you can type your question in. You're currently muted. There you go.
Hey, this is Eric from Pittsburgh. We're just here together. I just wanted to say first, I really appreciate you calling out that example of the utilities. It's and the not coordinating together. It is a serious safety problem, but yeah, you're right. Like being proactive about it can bring us so much more. But I also see a lot like situations where when the city is like put things in and then the utilities come in and tear it right out. So there's this immense cost to like just physical cost to it. And that's one of the arguments we've been trying to make with Vision Zero and Safe Streets is that you make these investments and then it actually saves money along, in the long run. Like you send less police officers, you send less fire, you send less first responders to crashes, things like that. And I'm curious, like, those outcomes you show are impressive with the hospital and Alcoa, but I'm curious if you ever make the economic argument as well, because we do live in a capitalist world, and I'm just curious your thoughts on making that economic argument, or do you make that, have looked into that and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great question. And first of all, I really need to credit, it was a conversation with Scott. We'd had dialogues at the city and water and so on. But it was a conversation with Scott at Pittsburgh that helped crystallize this maybe being one of the key areas to work on. So I just really need to credit that there. And yeah, so there are it's important to do the economic analysis. Um, Sometimes doing the economic analysis has to happen first just to get people to believe what the opportunity is so that they'll even go and work on it. Um, More often, it's better to start doing the work and then produce the result because what you don't want people doing is thinking that the money is the reason you're doing it. Um, what we need people to learn, what we need leaders to learn, is that doing the right things for the right reasons causes economic value. Paul used to talk about, Paul O'Neill used to talk about how values drive value. The reason that they are the same word is actually because they are part of the same principles. But unfortunately, that's not what's taught to most people who become leaders in the world. And so I would love to work with you and others. We've talked about connecting with universities to create teams that can create what we call a total value opportunity that help people understand the economic value that is there when we do things right. But the way we capture what that value that's actually there is by doing the right things. And when we do the right things, we get the economic benefit, as we showed with worker safety and with violence and with many, many, many other things, the work in healthcare. So it's a great question. And again, I see so many partners on this call where we may be able to team up to show that the economic benefit of the things we've already done is so great, and also to map out for the future what could be the economic benefit if we did all these things better. So thank you. Are there other questions or comments that people have?
Jeff, do you want to go to the next slide and just remind people to subscribe to the newsletter and
Oh, sure.
listen to the interview with Will?
Yes. Thank you. Yes. These are ways that you can contact us, and these are ways that you can learn more about us. Um, we have lots and lots of content on our More Perfect Region Substack, on our website, on LinkedIn, and of course, please feel free to reach out to me and I can feed information to other members of our team, Heidi, who's on the call here as well, Christina, Paul O'Neill Jr., who's on our team, and many other people who are doing work with us to help talk about. And I know that all of the leaders who we've been involved with in every organization, all of them would be happy to talk with anybody who's considering going down this path together, and potentially collaborating on many different things going into the future. The Pittsburgh Futures Collaborative LinkedIn was just put into the chat as well. Does anyone else have any other questions or clarification for me or for others here? Great. Lindsay, do you see anything that I'm missing?
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Oh, we have one. Jessica Link asks, what specific ways do you go about enabling leaders, especially those in organizations with limited resources?
That's a great question. Um, so um, the it's often said that organizational transformations begin with personal transformation. Leaders um, often need experiences that help shift mindsets around setting goals at perfect and around taking responsibility for things and all of those things that we just talked about. Um, those things don't happen because of talking about it. They happen because there are a set of repeatable experiences that we've learned that help people basically think about what improvements are possible and think about what it will take from them as leaders to enable those to happen. And so we host a variety of different experiences. The most common is the uh, what we call the habitual excellence self-assessment. And that's a multi-day experience where people get to go and observe in their own organization how work works, how improvement works, how management and leadership work, and then understand gaps from, sort of ideal principles. And so we really help people make those transitions. Now, the limited resources, there's two elements to it, and I saw Lisa just put a comment in the chat. One of the things that we've learned is that the vast majority of the work in most organizations is actually waste or non-value added, not because of intention of anybody, just because the systems are designed that way. And so we often talk about it's possible to take organizations, and Alcoa demonstrated it incredibly, that feel like they're living in scarcity and make it abundance because the resources often are already there. They just aren't being applied in systems that enable people to be successful in producing value and that virtuous cycle. So we help any size organization see those opportunities to produce more value with less resources, never laying anybody off. This is not about people, getting rid of people. That's actually the biggest mistake most organizations make. They get into limited resource situations and then they let go the people who produce value. So what we help people see that, but also we know that there are certain scales of organizations where it's really hard to come up with the resources to get this kind of support. And part of why we created Futures was to be able to create a context where maybe lots of small organizations could do this together, or where we try to solve a big problem together that we get funding and support for from larger organizations that then everybody benefits. So that those are all pieces that we're thinking through how to support people. But we're dedicated to helping organizations be successful. So even if you're small, let's talk and let's figure out the ways that might be possible. Lindsay, are there any other questions?
Nothing else has popped up.
Okay. Again, we have other people on the call. I see Lisa Frank from the city. I see Heidi. There are others on the call who please feel free to reach out to, because they have lots of knowledge and information about the kinds of things that we've done. If there aren't any other questions, I plan to wrap this up. So I'll give you like 1 minute if you want to have one more thing to ask. But otherwise, I'll start wrapping this up. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's really exciting to have. I think we had 30 some people sign up for this. So it's very, very exciting to have that much interest, and we're looking forward to working with all of you to make a better region.
Jeff, we have another question from Allison.
Oh, okay. Would you share
Allison,
it?
if you want to unmute.
Hey, Jeff.
There you go.
I have two questions. They're pretty quick. I wonder if you could restate or reiterate your most basic definition of excellence. I feel like that word in education is it's spoken, it's every other word, and it gets the
Yeah.
true meaning of it. I would love to hear how you define that. And then also, um, a lot of your examples were about like violence and physical death, and I wonder if your framework expands that to safety around like psychological safety around like the spirit, like for in schools, it's all about like kids and teachers and how they feel when they're there and how degrading or how their spirits are harmed.
Mhm.
Their sense of human dignity, and that sometimes that's a slower death or a slower violent, and so I wonder about your framework and how it extends to, examples that are not just like the physical, like they're gone, and safety around that, but just a broadening of that on a definition.
Yeah, Allison, thank you for that question. So let me take both parts of it. So the first thing was about how do you define excellence? And we use for anything the idea of what Mr. O'Neill called the theoretical limit. So in any system, whether it's an education system, where your goal is to have people who grow up and are self-actualized and have skill sets that enable them to thrive in the world, whether that's reading or math or whatever. The goal for every child and every child should be 100%. It should be proficiency. I understand everything that I need to be successful in the world, and I feel supported and valued so that I have dignity and respect from everybody, and can then extend that same dignity and respect to everybody else in the world. So those should be the goals of something like education. And equity is an element of that, right? Because it has to be every individual, not some individuals. So the goals of systems need to be very simple like that. We're trying to measure and perfect everything that we need to do to create those conditions. And that requires the second half of your question, creating psychological safety. There was a slide that I used earlier that was about leaders taking personal responsibility for the things, especially the things gone wrong. Um, that's what a leader needs to do. But what that's for is to create psychological safety for everyone in the organization to try and fail and learn and try and fail and learn and do it all together and never get blamed. Because this isn't about blame. And that's not how the majority of I know you work mostly in education, but it's definitely not the way that most of our education systems work, or our healthcare systems or our government systems. But it is the leadership that creates those conditions that enables the workforce to live that way. And when the workforce lives that way, it can extend that same excellence to its customers. So that's a short version answer to your question that's very deep and complicated. But it absolutely applies to all of that. Thank you, Allison. Any other questions? Lindsay, are there any there?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat or the Q&A.
Okay. Well, and I did see some things about, wow, we would really love to apply this to various different things like the school plans and so on. Again, we are wide open as partners to figure out how to support all of you in doing this work. And one other thing I just want to say, we have intentionally made ourselves a nonprofit because we don't want to profit from this. We want to serve. Um, and we are not going to seek funding from local sources that competes with anybody else. The way we do this work is we get paid by organizations that want to do this work to produce value, and that value is more than what we'll ever get paid. So we won't compete, and we aren't seeking funding from anybody. And that's important to understand because it's part of the enable. So much of the problems in this community are tons and tons of organizations in silos competing against each other for resources. And we want to help unravel that. And one of the ways of unraveling that is living that ourselves and not competing with others. So that's important for you all to understand. And I hope any questions you have about that, just let us know or give me an email or a call. All right. Any more, Lindsay? Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to hearing from any of you who are interested in partnering us to create a region where everyone can thrive. And thank you for all your work that you do every day to make that true within the context that you have. So thank you, and we'll see you in the future.